The prehistory and early days of the West Kingdom are quite literally the history of the Society for Creative Anachronism. For more detail and commentary on this rich tapestry of the beginnings of the Society, you are encouraged to visit history.westkingdom.com. Our focus tonight are the fighters who laid the foundations of Sca combat and the traditions that make each kingdom wonderfully unique. As a pastime, we are vibrant and fun because others were weird and daring enough to find their calling. As a martial art and sport, we still have many years to grow, to continue to codify and coalesce. But these early heroes took our first steps along this magical path. The Sca Coaches Corner presents Heroes. Hi everyone, I'm Jarl Ailgheanan, and I'm your host. That's what I look like at events and practices. Thank you for being with us tonight. I'd like to give a special thanks to Sir Rifkin for stepping in to be our engineer. My co-host tonight is His Grace Thorfin the Cruel. Duke Thorfin has had the pleasure to lead the West 4 times in recent years, with his first reign back in 2002 and his most recent in 2014. His Grace was just one round away from the finals round just a couple of weeks ago. Welcome, Your Grace.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be part of this program and to be, get the opportunity to talk about the history of the West Kingdom. I've been in the SCA for just over 30 years now, and having it be, one of the most important things I've done in my entire life is my friends and basically the people that have forged me into the person I am today are all members of the SCA. And so a lot of them we're probably going to talk about tonight. And so I look forward to hearing from everybody.
All right. Well, the first guest that I'd like to introduce is Viscount Leotolf of the Silver Hills. His Excellency's been an active member of the West Kingdom fighter community since 1988, and he won his Viscounty in the Principality of the Mist in 2005 and 2010. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Your Grace. This is an absolute pleasure. I'm honored to have an opportunity to talk about the West Kingdom and the things that it's done to shape not only my life, but the lives of so many people around me.
Well, it is definitely a pleasure to have you, and we really look forward to getting some good information out of you. Our very special guest tonight is His Grace Duke James Greyhelm. Duke James knows a little something about those early years because he won his first crown list in 1971. And just as impressive as that was, he won his most recent crown, his 8th, in 1990. Thank you, Your Grace, for joining us. This is a tremendous pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me. As has already been said, the SCA is a part of our lives. It's shaped me into the human that I became. I joined back in 1968. So at this point, I've been fighting for 53 years and still getting out there and fighting and enjoying it. I'm going to be participating in a coronet tournament tomorrow. So
that's amazing. That's tremendous.
Yeah, good living and good genes. That's all I can say.
Well, that definitely goes something. I mean, you won your own kind of genetic lottery.
I had an ancestor who was born in 1700 and lived to 1800, a knightly family of the Kingdom of Navarre. So I come by it honestly.
Awesome. So on these broadcasts, Heroes and Traditions, the goal is to try to take the history of specific kingdoms and the fighters and the traditions that are around fighting and break those down by the decade. One of the problems with that is, as I said in the introduction, the history of the West Kingdom in many ways is the history of the society. So it's 55 years and easily, 5 or more decades, which for us to have to talk about. And we may or may not get through all the stuff that, we would like to bring to you. So if that's the case, we're just going to slow down, take our time, and have a part 2 next month or whenever it is we get to do the next Heroes and Traditions. So I'm just so excited to learn about those early days of the society and early days of the West. So we're just not going to rush it if everything is going well. Those first, I guess even, before there's a prehistory as well. There is a tournament that happens that actually precedes the SCA, but is the beginning of the SCA. Do you have any stories about that you'd be able to share with us? I know you weren't at the first tournament, but you know people who were.
For 53 years, but the first tournament was already a thing of legend, and people disagreed about what had happened and stuff, even when I joined. And that was like AS
Just 2 years in.
AS 2.3 or whatever.
Yeah. I love that idea. That's already a legendary achievement, in 2 years.
Oh, well, things had changed an awful lot in those 2 years. You didn't say something loud. There was the beginnings of armor, and rattan swords had become a thing, but they were not taped. They were typically planed down and spray painted silver. So they broke a lot. I've still got the sword that I had from the time I was a squire until I was a duke. So I kind of model all my swords based on it. But the first tournament was a fluke. You had a group of science fiction writers, science fiction fans. Probably most importantly, Ken de Maeve as Duke Folk de Wyvern and Duke Siegfried von Huflichkeit, who's Dave Thulis. And they had been stationed in the Air Force in Germany, and they were both fencers, but they decided to start trying to experiment and see how medieval fighting might have worked. So they both had shields. I don't know when Dave's helmet got made. I think it was well after the first tournament. But they had it to do, and they'd been showing it to other people. And so Diana joined the Peace Corps. She was going to go away. They decided to hold a medieval tournament as a going away party for her. The tournament happened, and at the end of it, people were like, when are we going to do this again? Because they had so much fun. Everybody at the first tournament came as a knight, except for David Bradley, who was the first knight. So
Yeah, he came as a squire, correct? And then, I guess the king should knight someone, right? And so they kind of just did.
Yeah, pretty much. In fact, the interesting thing is I don't know that we even had a king at that point.
Right.
I know that there was a German exchange student who at the tournament people thought he'd won it, but somebody filmed it with 8mm or something. They watched the moves that had been developed and realized that Richard had won, that Richard had gotten it. And
Richard of Montreal?
Yes. In fact, in the video clips that opened this, you could actually see Richard fighting. He's a little shorter and stockier than the other fighters, and he's right-handed. So you can see him there. And he's the guy who's kind of spinning his sword around. He's got it like going like this.
Right.
And, yeah,
That's great.
That's Richard.
And just a fact note, Richard, who won his first crown list is what, Angus or Enginus, but went on to be Richard of Short, and Richard of Mont-Royal was the first person to win a crown list in the SCA.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. So he's Duke SCA essentially. He's the first, or King SCA is the first one, and he was fighting quite a bit when I joined. He was still very, very active. I think he may have been king when I joined. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I think he was. And he's, I think he lives down in Arizona now.
Oh, okay.
I think so. So during my last reign as prince, I'll drink later. I wanted to send out a calligraphed invitation to every knight that was currently resident in the principality. And it ended up that some of them were not, but they got the invitation anyway. And that includes Duke Richard. There were a couple of others. And I got some very polite replies saying, have fun with your list. Can't make it. I'm retired. But I got a number of really nice responses.
Well, I'm not surprised at that. There was a huge emphasis on chivalry and courtesy. And people really practiced it. It was very, very important. You were expected to behave in certain ways, even at that point in the SCA. So it was, the SCA is chivalry filtered through Hollywood movies and the Boy Scouts and Victorian ideals of knighthood, going back to, Walter. It's only been in the last, I don't know, 20 years that people have really started to do the original research, to be able to realize where we were coming from.
No, I think that's absolutely valid. I think that looking at when I started, like, which was your last reign here in the West, actually, is when I started, James. You were the first king I remember anyway. So I think I went to a couple events before that. You were the first king that I actually actively remember. But seeing how the SCA has changed with the kind of trying to delve into the medieval versus the kind of like Victorian or, like you said, Hollywood concepts of chivalry is pretty new, like you said, in the last like maybe 20 years or 25 years even of my career was where people really started talking about it more, like talking about the knightly virtues and things on a pretty regular basis. So that is an interesting kind of a observation that you have. So how did you even find the SCA?
I'd heard about it from a friend, a guy who's still around. I'm actually friends with him on Facebook. Silas Andrews, Baron Sylvanus Onderi, was the very first Baron in the SCA. He became a Baron because he had a working car. It was a cool car. It was I'm serious, man. We were poor.
I love that.
He had a Jaguar Mark 6, and he told me about his car, which I didn't believe. And he told me about the SCA, which I also didn't believe. Grown people hitting each other with sticks, this sounds pretty unlikely. But I went to the World Science Fiction Convention in Berkeley, and I'm standing near the entrance, and this Jaguar touring saloon pulls up, and there's the guy. He actually had that car. So I that first day. This is back BC, before cups and being left-handed. Right. I paid for that. So
I wanted to bring that up, by the way, that I have other friends from like my grandfather, Knight Sir Elrin, was knighted in year 6, right?
Right.
And he talks about BC too. Like he's like before cups is what it means in the SCA, and it just made me laugh that was actually a thing that we had to worry about at one point. Like, like no one wore cups. Jesus Christ. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, who could fight? So I could have gone out and fought in that first tournament that I saw.
Yeah.
The guy who won it was Sir Earl of Morris, called the Fierce. He wasn't Sir Earl at that point. He got knighted that night. So at the Revel. So I saw him get knighted, and I saw these girls hanging on him, and I thought, wow, this looks pretty cool, because he was my age. He was 16. He was about my size, actually a little bit smaller even. And I think if this guy can do it, I can do it. So I started fighting.
You were knighted at 16. No, it's when you
I didn't
started
like
fighting.
getting hurt.
That is
68.
crazy.
Yeah. So Labor Day, my first fighting was Labor Day weekend, 1968.
Okay. Wow.
So
I
a
don't know if
question
any
that
of
I
us
have, a question that I have for you, Your Grace James,
Yes.
what was training like when you joined? And then a couple years after that, tell me when it changed from what it was when you joined to the next sort of phase of training that you can remember or trend.
You cut out there, but I got the idea of the question. So here's what it was like. You had practices, but since there was no armor, when you practiced, you got hurt. If you were lucky, you didn't get injured. I got a broken thumb in a practice, just a one-on-one practice. And so you would get hurt on the weekend and then you'd heal up, your bruises would heal up. You'd go through a lot of tubes of Bengay or whatever was around back then. And we started trying to get some sort of armor. And at this point in the SCA, full body was a target down to your foot. So you got hit on the shin or the knee, it hurt a lot. And we didn't have enough helmets to go around, so not a whole lot of people could practice at the same time. So Robert of Dunharrow had made a few helmets, and so we were able to and then it was just really just sparring. There wasn't really a lot of training that went on. One of the first households that really trained was my own, but that wasn't until many years later. For a long time, it was just, you went to a practice and you didn't really, we were doing it for fun. We didn't think about it as being a serious martial art.
Right.
You wanted to win, and you'd practice a blow, until you got pretty good at it. But we fought mostly for fun. And it wasn't as serious as it is now by any means. But it became, as the SCA grew, it became more serious. There was one big thing that did happen, and people can feel free to disagree with me on this. One of the real things that got us into making armor was Duke Paul, because he hit really hard.
I have heard that on numerous occasions.
And a lot of us, if we had somebody wide open, blows anybody. Paul didn't really pull his blows. So
that is like, I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to tell you, hyperbole or not, that is the fucking legend. The legend is that Paul came in and he hit so damn hard that everyone had to like up their armor game. You couldn't just be in knee pads and a whatever anymore. You actually had to start wearing protective gear. And I think that is, I mean, like I said, hyperbole or not, that's the legend, and I believe it's 100% true because I've been hit by Paul, and Jesus, it hurts.
I vote no.
So
I have also heard that Paul is the reason that we don't shoot below the knee. Is that true, you guys?
no.
Okay.
I made the rule about not hitting, actually Verena and I made the rule about not hitting at the knee or below. And the reason for that was, it wasn't just Paul. If you got hit in the shin or the foot or the knee, it could take, people were making big, long kite shields and losing skill with smaller shields. So Verena and I decided we were going to do this as a rule. And there were we had at that point at least some documentation to show that there had been restrictive rules at tournaments on like no thrusts and things like that. So yeah, we did that. There wasn't any thrusting in the SCA when I joined because it was too easy to get injured.
Yeah, because you didn't have a face mask a lot of times, right?
Yeah, it was just, I mean, guys were fighting in motorcycle helmets. If you got thrust to the solar plexus, who knows what could have happened. So
about what year was that, James?
Oh, geez. So that's 1968. They already had a rule of no thrusts. You could thrust with
Okay.
a short sword. You could thrust with a short sword, but that was it. And there were lots of short swords around because people, when their broadswords broke, which happened all the time back then, because we didn't know about taping them and
But
stuff like that.
my question is about the short sword thing. Why did that? Okay, so obviously you just said that there was a bunch of them, and that's it kind of just became a thing. But I remember when I started, even the thrusting tips were like
Yep.
this big around, right? And
That's right.
if you only thrust with a short sword, it just wasn't really very practical. Having this giant, like,
Trailer
looked
hitch
like a
cover.
Q-tip. It looked like a Q-tip, right? And you try and, but for some reason, according to the rules of the time, that only short swords were magically capable of thrusting, right? And so, like, I always thought that was a weird kind of a tradition that we grew out of, it's because they were broken, just laying around.
Pretty much, there were a lot of them, and people fought with them. Also, we did live chess games at the Renaissance Fair, and the pawns had to fight with a short sword and a buckler. So guys would actually practice with it. I was a pawn the first time I was out there.
I was in one of those at 25-year belt thing. That was I remember it was a big deal. I thought that I got to be like a pawn, I think, or something like that in a live chess game.
Oh, they were fun, man.
I have to close my door because my kitten is losing her mind.
Okay.
So what year was the rule about hitting above the knee?
Okay, that was in my first or second reign. So 1971, 72, 73 is when we started.
Yeah, I love there's also kind of a myth that I think that it was for safety. And I think a lot of it was that it was just a pain in the ass to block there. How do you feel about that? I've heard both sides.
It was, since Farina and I made the rule, it was for safety.
Okay, fair enough. From the horse's mouth, right?
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
There it is. It was for safety. There were no greaves. A lot of guys didn't even have knee pads.
Right.
So, for time walking, it was just a pain. Tournaments weren't that big. There were like 20 guys maybe fighting.
Right.
And it seems to me that people went to the hospital on a pretty regular basis. Broken hands were the most common. But
okay, because you didn't have gauntlets or basket oats, so it'd be like a glove, right?
Just like a welding glove was considered good.
Yeah, those heavy welding gloves.
Yeah, which meant
Ouch.
you couldn't hold very well. Hockey gloves. If you found a pair of hockey gloves at the flea market, that was awesome. Nobody could afford to buy new hockey gloves except who had them. Randall Garrett, the science fiction writer, was our first herald, Lord Randall of Hightower, and he had a set of really good hockey gloves because he made his living with his hands writing, so he couldn't afford a broken hand. Yeah, and he was a very successful writer, so a very nice guy too. Kind of vanished from the history of the SCA.
I would love to see a list of the science fiction and fantasy authors that were active in the West Kingdom at the time. Fritz Lieber was.
I was at Fritz's 70th birthday party. No kidding.
Yeah, he was
okay.
of the East March.
Now I want to say he wasn't active in the SCA, but he did fight at an SCA event. At WesterCon, and it would have been in either 67 saber match, an Olympic style saber match. Fritz won. Fritz was an excellent fencer, very tall. He had great build for being a fencer, and he was very well trained. Really a gentleman, seriously good guy.
Was Paul Edwin Zimmer an SCA member?
Oh, well, yeah. In fact, he's Master Edwin Bearsark. That's Paul Edwin Zimmer.
Oh yeah, he's.
So when I first read him, I thought that it was the most realistic fighting I had read in a science fiction fantasy novel. I thought that it just actually seemed like the person knew what fighting felt like.
Yeah, in fact, he wrote some fighting scenes for his sister, who was Marion Zimmer Bradley.
Mhm.
Yeah, Paul. Paul didn't like the way the SCA changed, where we started wearing armor. He thought we shouldn't really have very good armor because then we could count blows better or something.
There's something to that.
Yeah.
I just don't like
James,
counting blows with an ouch.
No, yeah, the one time I know he fought Paul. Paul took the top of his helmet off. Paul
Oh my
actually
goodness.
with a rattan sword.
Yeah.
You know?
I think I was confusing Poole Anderson with Fritz Lieber.
Yeah.
Well, Poole was definitely, he was a knight. He was a member of the.
Yeah, he's Bela Wiesmark. Am I correct?
Yes, Sir Bela Wiesmark. He was one of the original members of the Knights of the Silver Mullet. He was a good fighter, a wonderful man, a great poet.
Yeah.
Write poems and recite them at court. It was really something. Good guy. So Michael Kurland was around. I fought. There's a photograph somewhere online of Jerry Purnell and I fighting. I've seen it.
One of my huge influences on joining the SCA and on the Middle Ages in general and fantasy in general was Catherine Kurtz.
Oh, yeah. Well, she was president of the SCA for some years. A little bit later, though. But let's see, she was very active in the early and mid 70s and later, because I remember she stayed with us in Berkeley in like 1976 or 7. She came up for an event. Still around. I talk to her every couple of years, see how she's doing. Just a remark.
So James,
Elliot Shorter. Yeah.
I want to talk about so you mentioned something, the Knights of the Silver Mullet. And
Yes.
The Knights of the Silver Mullet was a very early Western tradition. Can you kind of explain where that came from and kind of what it meant? Like describe the concept of the order. Okay.
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm going to have to dig that out of my memory here. I am a member of it. Especially nightly.
Yeah. When do you think that started?
Oh, geez. It was a 12th night, or was it? I can't remember. Okay, I've been hit on the head a lot. Let me be honest here.
True story.
But there were like 5 or 6 members in the original group. Sir Bela was one, Duke Siegfried was another. Late Stefan de Lorraine just passed away.
De Lorraine,
yeah.
So if I remember correctly, they were kind of considered like premier knights, like the knights that were examples for others to look to, but they also were given a special cloak, and this
Yes.
cloak only they could wear.
Yeah.
And it was a symbol of, like, when you saw that, you knew that person was of great stature, right? Within the chivalric community. That's my perspective from
Right.
in 1990. It was still a thing, and so is that how you feel about it?
I have my cloak, and the symbol of, what's on the cloak, it's white with a red pile.
Yeah.
And with the crown of the West on it. That white with the red pile, those are the arms of Sir John Chandos, who's considered to be one of the greatest knights of England.
Yeah.
Yes. In fact, originally they were going to call it the Order of Chandos.
No kidding. That I kind of would have thought that would have been cooler now. Now I'm hearing it, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, well, maybe that would have been cooler.
Yeah, it would be cool. And here's a story that can now be told, all right? Because Mistress Geraldine has passed away. Mistress Geraldine of Toad Hall used to lead tours in England, and they would go into country houses and have meals and stuff. And she was in a country house you know, there was a brass there, a memorial brass. And she looked at it and said, "Oh, wow, you have the brass of Sir John Chandos." And the family freaked out.
Right.
Because they're not supposed to have it. Her price for keeping silent was she made rubbings of that brass, and she gave rubbings of the brass of Sir John Chandos to the original members of the order.
Wow, that's
Nice.
freaking amazing.
Yeah.
So there's secret tricks even the British Crown doesn't know about that are out there.
That's incredible.
And we now put that up all over the internet. But since I don't know where the house is and Geraldine's gone, you can't get it out of me because I don't know where it is.
Fair enough.
All right, Your Grace. So you won your first crown in 71, 70, 72. Nope, 71. 71. And by the time you had won your first, Duke Heinrich of Haven had already won 5. Can you tell me a little about his fighting and his style?
Get out there at the end, but it was Duke Henrik.
Henrik.
Yeah, Henrik. He was an amazing fighter. He was the only, I believe he was of the first 4 dukes in the West Kingdom. He was the only one who was right-handed.
Okay.
That's interesting.
He was a great fighter throughout his entire career. And he was one of the few guys who had real armor.
He had mail, right?
Yes, he had an 80-pound hauberk. It was made out of coat. I wore it once, and I remember the weight of it. He wore a helmet that was an authentic helmet. He'd gone to a museum in Denmark.
Yeah.
And seen this helmet, made a copy of it. No padding. It was an authentic helmet.
Eek.
Yep.
He's a beast, man.
So those first
today.
So those first years definitely look like they were kind of, I don't want to say owned, but they were owned by Henrik and Richard. And then we moved into the period of the 70s, and that was kind of yours and Paula Bellatrix's period. Who else was a really standout fighter from the time that you won your first crown? Let's take it up to about 1975 or 6.
Okay. Well, there's of course Paul, but the guy who knighted me, King Hagen the Strong, who dropped out far too soon, but he was a for himself, excellent fighter. Stephen de Lorraine was always a threat out on the field. The father of the current King of the West, John the Lean back then he got married and he wasn't John the Lean anymore. Come on, story. He was a great fighter. And we were starting to get fighters from outside of the Bay Area who were also good fighters down in Cayuga and Fresno. So we had some, where later Duke Douglas Longshanks, Earl Sir Kevin Peregrine.
Yeah, Kevin Peregrine.
Yeah, he was a great fighter. He was in the finals, I think, 3 times. He won one, and I finaled against him, and Andrew of Riga beat him in the finals
too. Real, right?
Yeah.
Riga's on my list in this era.
Okay, great.
I understand that Andrew Riga, who is still active in the SCA.
He was a crown.
Yeah, he was lightning fast. And that was really, he was one of the first, I think, gunfighter type fighters that was his whole thing, was to, just, I'm so damn fast, I can hit you. And even like people I know that are modernly, who are fast, are like, goddamn, Andrew Reed was fast, right? But I wanted to ask also about the Houghtons. When did William and Christopher Houghton start becoming, these names have always been like kind of hanging out in my, kind of periphery of my world. And I've never even met them, but I think I'm friends with one of them on Facebook. But you know what I mean? Is like, so I think those guys also probably in the same time period, we're talking about like the 70s.
For the
Start
late
to become-
70s, late 70s,
Yeah.
early 80s, mid 70s maybe. Their house was up in Richmond, and the fighter practice was at their house for a long time. There was a weekly fighter practice there.
Right. Yeah, I think Sir
Joel
Stephen
Orr.
Norham was trained there,
Yeah,
and he was also like just an incredibly influential person to the SCA for armoring, like yourself, by the way.
Thank you.
That I think that Norham, if you don't know about Stephen Norham or James Graham's armoring, you are two of the people who really brought that game, like the historical look and armor, back to like more into the modern world, in my opinion. I mean, you have to be one of those people.
Steingram and I started what Brian Price called the West Coast School of Armoring.
Yeah, yeah. And also Steiner, yes, absolutely. Steiner
Oh, yeah.
for 100% sure. That guy's a fucking super stud.
Yes, and it's gone way past my abilities now. I just look at awe at the things that are being made now. It's just amazing. But
Yeah.
Norham always did beautiful work. He's an incredible craftsman, still
Yeah.
turning out 40 years
absolutely.
later.
I've been lucky to own a couple of his pieces that I fought in.
Wow.
And I gotta tell you, they're amazing because they always have the thing with the Stephen Norham's armoring was that they always had the right look,
Yes.
right? There was something just intrinsically medieval about them, right? Like they didn't look modern at all. And you wore them like, but you did the same thing. You broke ground on that too. I don't want to take away entirely from Stephen Norham, but also I think that you were one of those guys really leading the charge on that early too, though. And even Rob McKenzie, I think, was probably.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But don't forget the Bliss brothers out in Fresno.
Okay, I don't know that.
Okay. There were two brothers. I'm sorry that I forget their first names. I didn't prepare. Jay Bliss, yes, and Jim
Oh
Bliss.
wait, what was that?
Jay
Little.
Jay,
Yeah, I think
Bliss.
okay. That does sound familiar now when you say that.
yeah, that's a name I've heard. Interestingly, Duke James, my start in fighting in the West Kingdom was because of you, because I was able to get a helmet that I actually thought was safe at a reasonable price. And that helmet 30 years later is still in use. I've had to get some parts re-welded, but it's still on loan and still in use as far as I'm aware.
I think I saw about 5 of my helmets that were 25, 30 years old at Crown. I mean, they were, with one exception, they were being used as loaners. But one guy was still wearing a helmet that I made for him 25 years ago. I'm proud of it. So
I have one of your not so period pieces. You're inside the shield gauntlet.
Oh yeah, the back. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
that's the armor ever invented.
I still have one that I purchased from you in around 90. And that gets constant use.
It's a practical piece of armor. I think I probably had one of the first bassinets. Henrik had the first one, I think. But I had one of the first bassinets, brigandine, plate arms and legs sets. Kind of 14. I saw a drawing or a photograph or something of 14th century armor in a book, and I decided that's what I wanted to go for. And so I tried to learn how to do it. And there's a video somewhere. It's probably on YouTube of a melee from sometime in the 70s, and there's Freon can helmets and stuff like that. But I'm out there in about
Like a pig face, right?
You're
You're like a proper pig face, I think.
I've got a pig face. I don't wear it much. Just hard time breathing in it and stuff. And I've got a clop visor. I've got a clop visor too. I made Steingram and I made 75 pig face bassinets for the Sharper Image back in.
I still have that catalog somewhere. The one that you used to keep at your armoring booth.
Yeah, but nobody asked about the helmet. Everybody wanted to know who the model was.
I also still have one of the pictures from the photo shoot with you and the BMW motorcycle.
I've got one of those too, by the way.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, man. Hold it. I've got it up here on the wall. I'm going to turn the camera on the computer so people can see it.
Okay. So
Your Grace, while you're doing that, if you would think about when in the 70s to 80s that you started doing more formal training, what the other areas in the kingdom were doing.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you for doing that, Leotop. That's like, I agree. If his household was one of the first to really pursue a kind of a concept of training.
Yeah. Is that it? Can you see it there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was an album cover too.
What? I didn't know that.
Oh, from Fragile Glass. They were kind of a bad knockoff of BS.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. It's what it is it's James on a BMW in a like a full 14th century like harness with a lance, and it was used as a BMW head. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's a great picture. I don't know. He used to sell them at his booth for like $20. I bought one.
$5. $5.
$5?
$5.
Okay, they were worth 20.
Okay. That's something for a storytelling session, how that all came about, because it's not really.
Let's circle back to that idea that you said that your household was one of the first groups to start doing formal training, is what Leotolf was asking you.
Yes.
Like kind of describe what that meant. Like, how did you go from like just guys hitting each other, breaking each other's fingers, going to hospital, to trying to really formalize kind of
to learn how to do this?
Okay. Yeah. It came when I got a couple of really good squires. Terrence of Halliday.
Oh yeah.
And Alan. They really wanted to learn. So we would get together and train intensively. We'd fight, for several hours, either one-on-one or three of us, and we'd have 2 in, 1 out watching, and we would work on stuff. And we were serious about it. I was thinking about that prior to this this video, and I think we ended up deciding that one or more of us would be in the quarterfinals of any crown tournament. That was our intention. We trained with intention to win and to get good at fighting, and it worked. We were good. So
yeah, clearly.
At one point at an Estrella War, now Alan Samuldonach is somebody who probably a lot of people never even heard of, but he made good armor. He was a good kid these days, but he was a really good fighter. At one Estrella War, he and I, standing shoulder to shoulder, fought Duke Deaton Claymore and King Corus Natterhelm, pushed them up to the top of a sand dune, over the top of the sand dune, and killed them. It's one of the most memorable fights I have ever had in the SCA, and I was lucky enough to have won.
Yeah, Deaton's also a big guy.
Yeah, Corus was too.
Yeah, those are big fellas. And I'm not
good.
You're a slight fella.
I'm 5'8". Now, when I was my fighting weight was never more than about 155. And when I won my first crown, I was probably about 120. But look, man, my first year in the SCA, I weighed 116 pounds. I broke 2 guys' ribs. Yeah, it's just, if you knew how to hit stuff,
Right. This is because of you. Is this because of you
you
actually
know how to swing a sword.
actively training? Is it for the first time? Is that what we're seeing? Is that we're seeing like the first like kind of adapting it to be a martial art type experience?
Yes.
Okay.
And
So your success is based on you actually pursuing it as a martial art instead of just right. Okay, that's interesting. So you're actually an enormous linchpin or to the entire concept of training. And
I started thinking about it a few years back. Somebody online said something about the drill where you've got 6 targets on a telephone pole or whatever, and somebody calls out a number and you swing and hit it, that sort of thing. And somebody said I'd done that. And no, that wasn't me. That was Jade or Uther or somebody. But I started thinking about it. When did I start getting really serious about fighting? And it was probably 78. And so it was late 70s into the 80s.
can I ask on my list of people I think that were really influential this time period, the 66 to 80 era, when Radnor showed up, how much of a difference did he was basically a boy king, for God's sakes. He showed up and he was like a fucking child, and he's just crushing. What did that do to fighting in the SCA at the time?
We all had to get better. We all had to get better. Radnor, phenomenal swordsman.
Yeah.
Just
his flow.
yeah, just you couldn't tell where he was going to hit. I always had trouble with him because he's tall, and that's always been my one weakness is people could reach over. Yeah, people can reach over my shield and hit me.
I had the same problem.
Well, I learned to jump up in the air and hit them. I've done that a couple of times, but not it's he ended up running a really good practice down in the South Bay with a lot of fighters at it, and people got good quick. We started getting a lot of good fighters coming out of him, and I got to backtrack here a little bit. Five guys came over from Hawaii.
Right. This is a weird thing, guys. This Hawaii migration changed a lot of shit about fighting, I think.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, because it was Radnor and Wombat, Wolfshaw McWombat, and Steingrim.
No,
Steingrim was a different.
Steingrim has a Hawaii connection, but he was always living up in Ontario, up in the Portland area. Brandon Darendell.
Yeah,
right.
Brandon.
Yeah. Greg, who was, God, I can't remember his SCA name. It was, I think, one other guy, but they all came over, and I think Radnor was the one who said that having Wolfshaw McWombat on your side in a war was like having 5 extra guys. He was probably the best fighter that I ever knew who did not get knighted.
Wombat, yeah. Also, interesting, amazingly weird character.
Brilliant in other fields too. He was one of the first computer animators.
Right. He has a bomber. He's super smart. Yeah. I met him
in Canada
he was
now.
growing up in a porta potty. That's how I met Wombat.
As you do.
My knight was friends with him. Obadiah was friends with him. And they ended up having a conversation while I was trying to help Obadiah that night. And I literally met him because he was throwing up in a porta potty. But he was like one of these legendary figures as well, like Wombat. His litter was just called Wombat.
Yep.
And Wombat was a wacky dude, and also a great fighter though too. So he contributed, a lot there.
So there were a lot of good fighters. That by the time you get to about 1980, there are so many good fighters that, and there's different styles of fighting too.
Regional styles now.
Oh, absolutely. If
Yeah.
you look, there was a video posted recently of the crown tournament, the lucky one, where he finaled against Torgal.
Wow. I would love to see that. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it.
And you can see the styles between what it's doing. Yeah, it's pretty cool. You can actually, and Torgal commented on it in comments on the video. Torgal's working the inside really fast, close in blows, and
Cool
and
style.
Lucky's doing the kind of fighting I still do, where you got big looping outside blows trying to go around the shield, and so there already were regional styles.
Yeah, there was also I remember there was a Shaston style, and Rob Kinslayer had a little bit of a thing going on with his type of with the Sinagwin like style thing. So I'm seeing at least from my experience anyway, there was a lot of different kind of people were starting to put an imprint even in the early 80s, I think,
Yeah.
on affecting how fighting would be kind of across the board, I think. So
there's a big change there. There's a huge change between, I would say, 74 or 70. It really grew, and when everybody was in the Bay Area, everybody fought with the same people. So there was just one style, and the only major difference was whether you were left-handed or right-handed. And that was a big deal. I mean, 4 of the first 5 dukes were left-handed. So
yeah, that is an interesting statistic. I mean, it shouldn't fall out that way, but I understand why.
Yeah.
I think I said something wrong earlier. I think I said that Richard was right-handed, and not. He was left-handed. So you had Richard, Folk, Siegfried, Henrik, and then myself. So 4 out of the first 5 dukes were left-handed.
Yeah. What was the old joke? Something about left-handed programmers?
Yep, that's right. I'd forgotten that, but you're right. Because Folk and Siegfried were left-handed programmer. Maybe he was.
Afraid of left-handed programmers, huh?
And I've done programming, even though I'm not a programmer. So, oh well.
Speaking of programming, here's a programming note. We've got some technical issues with the person who's the host of our broadcast, our engineer. They're going to reboot their computer. Our live stream should continue, but for the viewers out there, if it doesn't, we will get this thing fired back up just as quickly as we can. So if you lose us, understand that we'll get it going again very quickly. In the meantime, we're going to continue our chat.
I mean, yeah, I'm really enjoying this. So we're in the mid 70s now. Radnor's showed up and made a big splash, I think, and then he kind of, I think, him and even kind of Sagan, I think that there was a lot of influential training kind of concept coming out of that, breaking down fighting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I have to put, before we get to the mid 80s, I guess I have to put Sagan on there. Even, like I said, some of the regional guys like my grandfather and I, Sir Elrin, I think, and also Stephen of Beckenham.
Yeah.
Beck came out and was a fucking superstar. That guy was such a great fighter, and his style is very different than almost anybody else's style. I maybe now, maybe he's grown, but I think that these are people that I'm looking back on my kind of early experience and seeing as they were still making a big splash. And by the way, even in up to 1990, you're still making a big splash, and so is Paul.
Yeah.
So you're seeing guys doing almost 15 years of fighting and being kind of changing the game as they go, right? And so who else would you put on that list, having been there? I'm looking at these guys we're talking 80 to 90 era. When did those things start to change for you or people maybe?
It's hard to say. I mean, the best fighting I think I ever did in the finals was the second one I fought against Paul and lost. And we were both at the top of our game. It was 14 years after our first final. Yeah, and it went the full 2 out of 3. It was a beautiful fight, set of fights. But I'm just thinking about, there were so many good fighters, especially you had guys coming up from Caid and coming down from Antir when it was all one big West Coast kingdom. Gregory of York from Caid, great fighter. Sir Armand de Sevigny. And from
Also,
Ontario.
Armand was one of those guys who he looked like he was straight out of the Norman, that movie with Charlton Heston.
He still does.
He fought head to toe in Mayo,
That's all.
like in 1980.
Right.
Yeah, that guy was like
He's
amazing.
wearing male chouses,
Yeah,
That's
male chousing. Like, who did
Yes.
that? Nobody does that, right?
He
Still,
did.
yeah, amazing. Go ahead.
I came into the SCA in the West Kingdom. I started in the Middle Kingdom in about 84, but I came out here, and one of the immediate influences on my life, or on my fighting and my SCA, was not just for how skilled he was, but for the way he carried himself and what he looked on the field, and that was Robert of Woodsend.
Oh, yeah.
Still to this day.
Oh, yeah.
And he's coming out of Houghton's school.
Yeah, right.
So
What about how would you say? I really think Steen Halverson was a big influence on this kind of embracing the medieval versus the modern here in the West, anyway. And Sir Steen Halverson was very accomplished knight. Fought in the first full face helmet I've ever seen that looked like a face. He had like a Saxon, like, kind of conical helmet, but he had like this. It was so tits. It even had a freaking braid. His braid was, or his hair was covered like flexible. But I think he was a massive influence on people's perspective of what chivalry meant and things like that. Like a really huge gift. Maybe not on the fighting side, but maybe more on the esoteric side of being a knight.
The vision, the knightly vision. Yeah.
well,
Absolutely.
what we would call franchise now.
Yeah.
He maybe is the primogenitor of that. Like, he's the guy who really lays down this kind of idea that it's okay to look back to the medieval and try and extrapolate out where we are now. And I think he was a very thoughtful knight, and I think he did a lot for the kingdom in that level.
Oh, yeah.
I would agree. For any how we get from the actual Middle Ages to what we think the Middle Ages was like, there's a wonderful book called The Return to Camelot, and I highly recommend it.
I don't have one.
Yeah. I've had some of my squires read it. It's pretty interesting. And I've seen reference. It talks a bit about the Ailgheanan tournament and stuff like that, but it a big sort of thing. And Queen Victoria got involved in it and stuff, or she might have been a princess at that point. But this is we come by who we are through a very convoluted path. And the fact that we're trying to go back and try to do it better, I think speaks well for the organization.
I agree. I think that's actually, I think that's one of the things we should be trying to do all the time, right? Is explore internally as well as externally what this whole concept of chivalry and knighthood is, right? It's not a one-way kind of ending in a cul-de-sac. What it is, it's a path that we're all kind of like going down. And
it's an evolving.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. Even to the medieval knight, right? I think it was actively,
We've got a good question here from Axe.
Shoxy.
Okay. Yeah. Pels were already, go back to AS2 or something. So they were still around.
Really?
Yeah.
So-
Well, it makes sense because it was really dangerous to fight.
Right. With no gear, it was dangerous to fight. I understand.
But if you wanted to build up your arm and your aim and stuff like that, a Pel was great. So they were already in use.
Okay.
That's
I
So
would not have
here-
expected an answer.
Yeah, me neither. That's good to know, though. But and it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So many of the different conventions and techniques that you guys really devised to keep from killing each other. It's
Right.
pretty cool. I have a question about some of the West Kingdom traditions that are fairly specific to your kingdom. First, why don't you tell me about your Tournament of Roses? When did that thing get started? And give us a little description of what that is. Leotolf, why don't you jump in on there?
Well, so the first time the quote Challenge of Roses showed up was actually at the Crown for Duke James's last reign. The Queen's champion said, "I'm going to hold the field," and the champions of the other royal ladies present said, "Okay, they're going to hold the field." And the goal was, if I believe the Queen's champion was Sir Drew Fortescue, said, "Okay, if you win, then deliver a rose to your lady. If I manage to best you, then deliver a rose to the Queen for me." And that's how that got started. And then it sort of evolved because they wanted to be more inclusive, let more people play. And so now the convention is you challenge an opponent or you're challenged. Usually you fight like 3 fights or 5 fights. And the victor can choose a person to whom a rose will be delivered, and the queen provides the roses, or the princess, whatever royal lady happens to be.
Yeah, ladies of the court, I'd say, yeah.
Yeah. And it has become really a huge thing in the West. Baronies do it now at various tournaments, but it's an opportunity for you to go out and fight people that you never get the chance to fight because we only come together as a kingdom, on these occasions. So it's pickup fighting with a goal, which tends to give you a little more intensity and a little more direction.
It sounds amazing. I mean, any opportunity to be chivalrically inspirational or to, and this is a problem we have here in Aidenveld. There's not a lot of opportunities here to show your prowess without getting a job. So
Right.
the ability to actually go out and just fight, and then also to lend to the romantic pageantry of the affair just sounds amazing. And so that sounds like a great tradition that you guys had. And I think it's really cool also, because if that was in His Grace's last reign, that was like in the 1990. So not all traditions started in AS1. Some of them were several years, decades into it. So that's great.
Go ahead.
No, as I said, it's actually a really big part of what we do, is that we have a kind of a culture of inviting all Western fighters to come to the tournament. So instead of having it be where there's only going to be 10 or 12 or someone who is like, has to be approved by, anyone. If you're a Western fighter, you're allowed to fight and kind of almost expected to fight in Crown, because it allows you to be involved in the experience of finding who the next king is, right? So instead of, where some people say like, oh, don't enter Crown unless you're ready to do
Sure.
the job, or whatever. It's more of everyone should be part of this process, because we are here to find out who that person is. And then we also have this opportunity, if you're not, honestly, you're not going to be the guy who's going to win Crown, right? To then step aside after you've been knocked out of the tournament and still continue to fight. And like you said, show your prowess and experience, the chivalric combat, with this concept of being like about other people, not even you. right? So at the end of the day, when you win that thing, you give a rose to someone else. And it allows you to explore these things in a very kind of cool way. I think it's really
Yeah,
a nice.
I really love your challenge of roses, your tournament of roses idea, but I'm also a big fan of your cultural kind of expectations going in and for fighters participating in crown, because that is absolutely not the case in many other kingdoms. I mean,
Right.
I have seen people, jump in on squires, unbelts, men at arms who have 0% chance of winning crown, and tell them you shouldn't do it unless you're ready to win. And it's like, wow, I really feel like the more participants that we can have to bring the magic and majesty to crown lists, the better.
What activity can you expect to excel at if you never get to be in it? Right? If you're never in a tournament, how can you become a good tournament fighter? Right? The only way to get that experience is to actually be in it. And so I think that it's important to allow these people to explore that path. And let's be honest, if someone who was a person who's young and doesn't know what's really going on won, like the stars lined up and they won, the kingdom would support them. We would rally around them.
We
right?
will never allow someone to fail.
Yeah.
If you come out in our kingdom, if you're going to fail as king, you pretty much got to try.
Yeah,
Right.
that's your stuff, right?
I know I've been asked before when people are saying what are the roles and responsibilities for the peerages, and then they said, well, what do royal peers do? And someone laughed, well, they just get to wear fun hats. And I'm like, no, in my line of thinking, their job is to support the crown and the royalty, especially in situations when those people might not know as much and might not have the support they otherwise, the more established peers would have. So,
Yeah, that experience.
you have jobs.
You could give back, right? You can pay back a little bit because you get a lot of stuff given to you, and so it behooves us to actually pay back to that system and let those people, let everyone have their experience. Everyone's gonna be different. There's no king and queen that's gonna be the same, and that's what we also like. We like the idea that it's gonna be different this time. Who knows what they're gonna do, right? And I think that's kind of the cool part about having it open to everybody.
Sure. So keeping the thought on your guys' crown, how long has crown been predominantly open to all participants from outside of kingdom? And I know this is one of your buttons. We can let you put your pitch in just a few minutes, but let's actually talk about the history of it before we talk about the pros and cons.
Sure. As long as I've been in the kingdom, it's been open with a few exceptions.
And why don't we explain what that means? Because there are legitimately people in the SCA that have no idea what open crown list means.
We encourage anybody who wants to visit to come out and fight. Put on their kit and come out and fight in our crown list as long as you meet the requirements of you and your consort being a member. It kind of goes back a little bit to Western arrogance. Sure, come on out. We will defend our crown.
Hey James, can you speak to like some of the earlier times when there really wasn't a lot of outside kingdoms and things, but there were people like say from the Principality of Ontario coming down and things. How did that formulate into this idea that we have a open crown tournament?
I'm trying to think about when this became an issue. The first time that we had a king from outside of the West Kingdom was interesting. It was Gregory of York, and Bevan Fraser of Stirling. Catherine Kurtz was his queen. And he won crown, but it was at the time when Kyiv was going to become a kingdom.
Right.
So it was interesting how that worked out. But it was formal, that the crown was open. I don't remember turning anybody down who came in.
Right.
But I remember, it was before I got knighted. Robert Round Pounder came up from Aytonville, but I think he was king at the time, and to see our tournament and stuff. I remember he hit me in the head. Back when I had the helmet that you mentioned at Crown, the one made out of an old headlight.
Yeah, his original helmet was a headlight, by the way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. 22 gauge steel or whatever.
Oof.
And I remember that blow kind of hurting. But it was a question about whether I'd sloughed a blow or something. But, you know, in that helmet, if you hit me in the head, it A, dented the helmet, and B, you know, it probably knocked me over. So, yeah, I was pretty oriented. You know, Turtle's brother, Miles of the Shamrock, I think. That guy qualified him, I think. He was a pretty good fighter, too. Well, let's see. Any other questions up here? People coming in from out of Crown or out of Kingdom. I don't think it wasn't really an issue. People, you know, because it was expensive if you were traveling. So I think people showed up.
The SCA was still pretty far apart then, right?
Yeah. You know, events, we didn't even have an overnight tournament until May of 69. That was the first overnight tourney. And it was controversial because it was outside of the immediate Bay Area. That was a big deal. Before
Where was it at?
Where was it? It was in Oakdale at the ranch of
Yeah, so maybe an hour.
Chang.
Yeah.
So, and there's kind of some kinds of crazy stories about everything that happened there, and I assure you it's all true. So, oh yeah,
Everything's true.
naked people running through the night with swords to attack rednecks and pickup trucks, you know, who thought that we were a tribe of hippies who had attacked and taken over Chang's farm or something. I don't know what the heck they thought was going on. Oh well, my memory of it is.
Well, while we all try to cleanse that from our minds, let me ask about your mucking great club. Thorfin, why don't you start us, and then if James has something to throw in on that on this tail end, why don't we do that? But go ahead, Thorfin. I know that's kind of one of your things as well.
Well, what it is it's arguably the first award of the SCA. And I think it actually has almost like a proto SCA origin, but we're talking like one of the first things that was ever in a court given as a recognition. It's a large club. It's about that long. It's very thick, like a Bam Bam club. It looks like, and it has a giant freaking nail through it, right?
Oh, goodness.
I mean, we're talking like one of those like the Romans would have used it type nail. And the whole thing is you get it for like kind of stupid heroics and like just being like on the battlefield doing something ridiculous. And
Sure.
so you get to have the mucking great club and you get to carry it around with you. And now tradition became, I don't know if it started this way, we'll have to ask James, but you had to take a pound of wax and you had to wax this damn thing. Right? Over the course of your ownership, you had to wax the Mucking Great Club. Now, like I said, maybe the first award of the SCA, even on tier has their Mucking Great Mall, which is like their version of the same type of thing. And of the, it was like given as a kind of a, I think a little tongue-in-cheek type of award for you being kind of a ding-dong on the battlefield, and then you had to, as punishment, had to polish it, but you also got to carry around this giant-ass club. It looked super, super fun.
Do we know who got it first?
I don't even know. It's so like so far. There's another one too called the Old Battered Helm, which is like literally one of the oldest helms in the SCA that everyone that is given this award for dying like the most heroic, like not heroic, but horrific death of the day, would be given the Old Battered Helm, and then you're supposed to wound the helmet somehow, right? So there's all these like spikes through it and bullet holes and every other thing. These things are so like entrenched in the past that I don't even know if we even know at all where they kind of started. James, do you know where the Monkey Great Club came from?
I do not. It was already a thing when I joined.
Yeah.
Necessarily intelligence.
Right.
So,
Right.
but I never won it. I was always too technical.
I have it.
It was, and the thing about the pound of wax, that was already the tradition in 1968. So
That's amazing.
it must have existed. It must have existed already, for a year or two. It's pretty cool looking, gotta say.
Yeah, it's this really bonkers like Bam Bam Club, and but it's fascinating to me that I had no idea that by year 2 of the SCA, it had already kind of was just a thing already, right? And to me that's so weird that it's kind of existed. It's one of those things that exists before time, right? It's always been here kind of, and there it is.
Well, Henrik or Siegfried would remember who made it and where it came from. So, yeah.
Hey, if someone can follow up and ask, I think that would be great.
I'm looking right now.
Right. Also, I mean, I think Henrik made what we call the right honorable crowns, the ones with the oak leaves.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Henrik made those. And James, when did those come into use? Because I know that originally there was the concept that you would have your own crown.
Yeah, I still have. Okay, the reason you had your own crown was that the official crowns, which were made out of hammered, so people made their own. They got crowned with the official crowns, and then they got put away, and you had your own crowns. I've still got mine, in my dressing drawer.
Hey, James, you broke up just a little bit there. What were the original crowns made of?
Hammered copper.
Right. And they have fur on them. Is that
Yep.
the ones?
Yep.
They have they look like really Conan. Like they have like a fur band and they're hammered copper, if I remember.
And I think those were made by Master Beverly Hodgehead, who was the very first vessel. So,
Right.
but and they were still in use when I was first king, first couple of times. I think it was my 4th reign when I got the silver crowns that Henrik made from coin silver, as I recall. He melted down.
They're made out of old silver dollars.
Yeah. So, and I believe that he took and melted them into the oak leaf crowns. I think you can see a little piece of copper.
That's right. It's in the center rivet of the with holes on the oak leaf in the front. There is I had a person one time tell me, "Oh, Your Majesty, your silver leafing is coming off your crown." And I got to look at them and say, "No, I'm sorry. That's the piece of the first crown of the SCA where we keep it right here." So
cool.
But that was a pretty cool moment.
That's great. Hey, Viscount Leotolf, why don't you give us some of the follow-up info that you found on the club?
So the club was given as a gift by Siegfried to Folk de Wyvern as a Christmas present. And then he gave it to Henrik of Hahn as an award. So that was first given in April of 1968.
Wow.
That's tremendous. Well, okay, so while some traditions may have started in the 90s, some started in the late 60s. That's just tremendous.
And the old Battern helm looks like it was first given to William the Lucky, but they don't have a date, and then was given to Stefan de Lorraine in 1974.
That sounds right. I think we're on our second helmet. The original was one of the 22 gauge or 20 gauge Freon cans.
Right.
And the current one is a Freon can, but
indestructible. But the later ones were pretty bad.
Right on.
So I think we've managed to make our way maybe the first 20 years into heroes and traditions of the West Kingdom. So we're going to knock out the next 25 years in 5 minutes. Or I'm going to invite these fine people back and we will have a part 2. So we'll those of you who are wondering where we're going to bring, when we're going to start talking about Jade of Starfall, we'll have to, we'll have to bring him in. Actually, why don't we because I think Jade really kind of brings in this next generation, and he was a dominant fighter in this next little bit, and we'll kind of start and kind of get a little bit into some of what Jade has brought into it, and then I think we'll probably have to end for the evening, and we're going to have to revisit this topic because we're going to have to get through the rest of your history.
And Jade is almost worthy of his own episode.
And I want to jump in here and do some claiming because he was my squire.
Right.
So Jade was an 18-year-old actor. And we were in a play together called The Fabulous Furry Fealty Brothers Meet the Mad Menace of the Moral Mothers.
Wow.
It's an SCA play, right?
And, I played Duke Phenobarbarus Fealty, and Jay played Earl Free Willigan. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers, yes, there was a third brother played by Glenn Thane, Fat Flaky Fealty. We had the cat and the cockroaches as well. So I will not describe the play just because of its political background. And there were definitely politics involved and personalities. But Jade and I hit it off. He was trying to work his way into the world, and the SCA was perfect for him. So
What year did he become your squire?
Okay, I'm thinking it was about 19. See, when did I get that house in Berkeley? Oh, geez. I'm gonna have to think about that. It's when the play was first produced, so we can actually get the date.
You're thinking around 86, 87?
Yeah,
Because
somewhere, because like 80, because I was making armor for a living at one point it was when I stopped teaching. Yeah, 85 sounds right. Because I was teaching till 84, and then I quit and started making armor, and I was doing both of those things at that house in Berkeley. So that's when it happened. And Jade grew up in San Francisco.
I'm seeing like a meteoric rise of Jade from like mid 85, 86 to 1990.
First crown in 87.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Could you tell right away that he was going to be a good fighter?
Yeah,
Because he was an actor, like you said. He was a thespian. That's what he was interested in. He wasn't actually, and also he grew up on a hippie commune and shit like that.
well, he did. He grew up in the Haight-Ashbury, not in a commune, but he did travel on the road with the Grateful Dead for 4 years because his mother was Phil Lesh's.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go.
Anyways, but guys, I'm getting the call here from my wife that time is up, so we can leave Jade with that and then go on.
Fair enough.
No, that sounds great.
Yep.
So I tell you what, why don't we go ahead and start wrapping things up so that we can get people to their dinner. But this has been just an amazing evening for me to find out about not only history of the West, but very, very clearly history of the society with regard to fighting and traditions. Our guest this evening, His Grace James Greyhelm, Viscount Leotolf. His Grace Thorfin helped me so much with hosting this thing. I'm Ailgheanan. Everyone, why don't you pop and give some closing comments? Thorfin, you first.
All right. I got to say, I feel like we're just we're tearing back the layers, and I can't wait to really kind of explore the next section, because this is when I become active in the SCA, and I can tell you like where I was first person experience, right? It's been, of course, James, it's always good to talk to you, and Leotal. You and I have done several of these things online, and I always get a major kick out of hanging out with you. So I look forward to phase 2 of this story.
Your Excellency Leotolf.
So, first off, Your Grace, as we talk about the heroes and legends of the West Kingdom, just over a year ago, I had the honor to fight another legend in the cancer tourney at Estrella. And Your Grace, I want to thank you for that butt whipping. That was a great deal of fun. But I really enjoy looking into the history to see where we've come, because now as a knight and as we have our own squires, we start looking at where we're going in the future. And this virtual SCA has created an entirely different atmosphere that allows people from all over the country to gather and discuss some of these things. And for me, it's always been a pleasure to hang out with Thorfin, Duke James, again, one of my great influences in the SCA. And so I want to thank everybody for letting me just sit in on this.
Awesome. Duke James, you want to say goodnight?
I do, but thank you so much. It was good to see my friends who I've just admired them and their accomplishments. It's good to get to meet you, and I look forward to the next one of these. I want to pass on some of these memories and stories to people, because otherwise a lot of them are going to get lost. So,
Yeah.
So,
Also, can I point out that James won his first crown when I was 1 year old, and I don't know how old you were, Ailgheanan, but it could have been much different.
I would have been 2.
Yeah. All right. I love that idea that 69 years old, I was watching him last weekend, no, 2 weekends ago, fighting, and we all have that to look forward to. If we try hard and keep care of our bodies, we can do this until we're 69 now.
I was 3.
There you go. Well, all right. I'm going to wrap us up. So thanks everyone for joining us. This is important to me. I am not a history nerd nearly so much as I am a participant in the Society for Creative Anachronism. I have always been much more interested in the history that we're making than the history that we're actually representing. I'm not saying that I'm not into the periods that we study and the periods that we do, but I personally am just overwhelmed and fascinated by the narrative that we're able to create ourselves in this time. And thank you everyone for joining us, because I suspect that if you hung around with us for this long and are at all looking forward to visiting us with again, that you also love the history that we make. So thank you so much for all the technical assistance that we got from Sir Rifkin and her amazing sibling who stepped in to give us a hand. You guys are great. And thank you so much, everyone.
good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Right. Okay. Ailgheanan, are you still on?
Yes,
Okay, I'm going to have to talk you through stopping the live stream, because it's not going to stop until you stop it.
okay. I think I do have an end button.
Yeah, so you'll want to, in the bottom right-hand corner, it says more. You'll want to click on that, and then it says stop live stream.
Shaxi, I'm really digging your haircut right now.
Oh, thanks.